Okay. Can you all see that okay? Thumbs up there if you can see it.
Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks.
Great, perfect.
Yeah, we can see it.
We're going to go from now until 9:30, so I think about 24 on the workshop, which is great. So if you have any questions, if you want to raise your hand or if you want to unmute the mics and just ask the question, feel free to do so. And we might take a slight couple of minutes of a break, not a break, but maybe halfway through, just to, if anyone has any questions during the workshop itself. But if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to ask or to raise your hand if that suits. Okay, so I know probably a lot of you through projects we've been involved with before, or through other workshops we ran or delivered for PPN or for local development companies across the country. For those who don't know me, my name is Tom O'Leary. My company is O'Leary and Associates Training and Consultancy Limited, and I'm based in Kerry. I have an office here at home in Causeway, and we've also offices in Kerry. Primarily I work in Kerry and Limerick, some parts of Cork, and also I do a bit of work above the Midlands as well over the last number of years. So I've over 20 years experience of working with not-for-profit organisations and social enterprises, and I do work around project development, business planning for community projects, feasibility studies for community facilities, and also I do grant and funding applications for community projects. So part of my work will be working directly with organisations like yourselves, and then I do a lot of training programs for Kerry PPN and for other PPNs across the country, and also for local development companies in Kerry and in Limerick primarily. So I met with Rita there a couple of months back to look and see, what sort of training needs the PPN had, and what sort of needs community organisations that are members of the PPN had, and also we discussed what are the issues facing groups at the moment, based on my own experience of working with groups over the last couple of years. And I suppose we're coming into the end of the year, and it's been a kind of challenging couple of years for every organisation. But next year we're going to come into a year where there's going to be a good bit of money out there in the economy. The government has a lot of money to spend. We're going to an election kind of cycle as well. So the local elections next year and then general elections the year after. So in terms of election happening, normally there's a loosening of the purse strings and funding being made available. We're also coming into a period of where the new leader program is going to be up and running through South Kerry Partnership or through North East West Kerry Development. So again, there'll be funding available through them next year, and there's other funds that are in the process of being planned as well. So I suppose it's kind of an opportunity now for organisations and communities to look at what's needed in their community or what's needed in their organisation, to put a plan together and then be kind of shovel ready, get a plan for next year. So when funding does become available, that you're kind of ready to pounce and say, look, we have a plan here, we have a project that needs to be developed, and we're all ready to go. Just give us the money to do it. I think we can be, as a community in Kerry and elsewhere, but certainly in Kerry, because that's where I'm based, and that's kind of where my passion lies, is helping groups locally. Is that if there's money available next year, we should be doing everything we can to get that money into the county. But it just doesn't come in by itself. It comes in based on what plans people have and how they want to spend it. So the starting point of the workshops tonight is to look at how we can actually get projects off the ground locally. What's the process in getting projects off the ground? And then over the next couple of nights, we'll be looking at how to take those projects from a planning stage through development, design, funding, and then we'll be focusing on, once those projects are up and running, how we actually manage and sustain those projects. Okay, so just an idea of the type of stuff that I do from a planning point of view, from a project planning point of view. So we do sports facilities development plans. So this is ULBO's, probably in Limerick, and we would have done their facilities plan with them in terms of how they want to develop their facilities over the next 5 years. And we would have done the needs analysis with them, consultation process, and then we come up with a design plan based on what the needs are, and then we put a plan in place for them to fund and develop and implement this sort of project. another project over in Limerick that we finished there a couple of months back. Was the community wanted to purchase the old parochial house in the village, convert it into community space, childcare facility, and co-working space. So we would get a plan with the community in terms of what they needed. We would have put together a business plan for it, and we would have done a design concept for the site. And that's currently going in for planning commission, and they'll be looking for private funding next year. We do things like community plans or tourism plans. This is the tourism strategy we did at Tralee back in back about 3 years ago now, or 4 years ago now. And that would have been an action plan to develop tourism in Tralee town, and that was in for the Chamber Lines. And this is a sample then of an action plan that kind of, a real action plan that happens after the community planning process. So this one is for a plan we did above in West Limerick in a place called Kilmeedy. And it's the Kilmeedy Community Plan. So it's basically a plan that was done by the community, and we facilitated them on the planning process to see what we've done within their community over a 5-year period in terms of infrastructure, enterprise, job creation, tourism, social housing, recreation facilities, tidy tunnels, and a whole range of other stuff. So we would have put a plan together based on their analysis and identify what they need to do and when they need to do why. So pretty much at the end of the community planning process or project planning process, you end up with a plan like this. It's kind of an action plan or blueprint for what you want to do going forward and how you get funding for it. So the importance really, I suppose, of a community planning process or a project planning process is basically without a plan, you're not going to get supported by anyone. Okay, so you might have loads of ideas in your head, you might have loads of ideas written down somewhere. The community might have a lot of ideas in terms of what it wants to do. And you might be very, very well organized, but if you don't have a plan written down and some sort of structure in terms of how you're going to do it, why it's needed, and proving that it's needed, you're not going to get supported by it. If you have all those things, if the money's there, you have a very good chance of getting the funding, the same as any other company or other organization that would have the same chance, either locally or nationally. So my job basically is to give you an overview of what's involved in this. Some of you might have gone through this process before, and I've produced plans before, and I've gone through planning process before. If you have, fantastic, and I hope they worked out well for you. But it's really important that people understand what the process involved. It can be daunting for a lot of groups because there's a good bit of work involved in it. But my kind of motto in life and in business is keep things simple, don't overcomplicate it. And it's really kind of working with community in terms of what people need, identifying those needs, and then kind of putting a plan in place to kind of make sure those needs are met through infrastructure, facilities, whatever it might be. So ultimately, you as volunteers in communities and community groups around the county, it's your responsibility to make sure that the services and facilities and support are being provided to everyone in your community, whether it be that young people or older people, people working, people not working, new communities coming to the country, coming to the communities, any supports that people require. It's the community management sector that ultimately are responsible for left, more likely important, not responsible, but left to provide these facilities at a local level. The likes of Kerry Council, local level companies, and government departments make the funding available, but ultimately it's down to people on the ground to actually get the projects done. If you're working in a sports club, it's the volunteers on the ground. If you're working in a community group, it's the volunteers that are doing the work. You're working in meals and feeds, it's the people that are voluntary delivering those meals to people in the community. They're the backbone of society. With a plan, it just makes things easier for you to do that, and it makes it easier for you to get funding to do it. So, over the program. So the first slide is tonight. So part one is looking at project planning. So that's kind of the idea stage. Part two is the project development stage. So it's taking those ideas and putting those in some sort of a plan, so design or some sort of a project plan in terms of a business plan that you can look for funding and use that to look for funding. It also involves the funding stage, so identifying getting funding to actually, get the plan off the ground. And then the final part is, okay, once we get the funding and once we get the project running and up and running, or the building built, or the project developed, how do you actually manage that afterwards? So how do you actually manage the project after it's developed? So,
sorry, Tom, can I get in there? Will we take notes here, or will these templates be
Yeah, so sorry, Alicia. So I'll make the slides be available to you, and it'll be the recording be available to you as well.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
perfect. Thank you.
I'll take what you can, like, but there's no need to, because all the slides will be available. I'll also just start as well. I'll be sending on. There'll be various different things we're referring to this evening in terms of information and research. I'll be sending you on the links as well to those. So on the slides, I'll put in the links to the various different websites that have the information that you might need for your projects, like the census information, things like that. If that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So the project, I suppose what we find with groups is that they want to develop a project locally. We get involved with them. You have them develop the project plan, you have them develop the actual business plan or the grant application. They get the grants, everyone is delighted themselves because they got funding to do the project. And then maybe a year later, they call me up saying, we wish we never met you. We wish we never went through this process. We wish we never started this because it's a bloody nightmare. It's absolutely, there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, there's a lot of administration involved. We didn't realize there's so much work involved in managing the project afterwards. So it's really important as communities and as community groups that you're aware of. Once you get the money and once you get the project started, you're going to be responsible for maintaining and sustaining that project forevermore. Okay, you and the people coming after you are going to be responsible for it. So every community centre you see in the country or in the county that has been developed, somewhere there 40, 50 years, they were developed 50 or 40 years ago by people like yourselves who needed a facility in the community, and they were built. And now there's people in the community who are trying to renovate them and keep them going and keep the visitors and stuff like that because they're still needed. But it's up to yourselves to take a project, develop it, but then it's just up to you then as well to manage that project and sustain it afterwards. Okay, so I kind of sum it up as this kind of process. The first bit is a bit of crack. It's basically, talking with the community, finding out what's involved, public meetings, community meetings. It's a bit of fun for people. People could throw their ideas, throw their suggestions forward. The second part is kind of more focused crack. So it's actually a bit of the fun stuff in terms of designing a project, looking at a plan for a building, looking at designing it, kind of putting things together. And it's all kind of exciting times for groups because there's money available, there's a project being developed, everyone's kind of excited about it. And then the last part is the hangover. The hangover is basically the problem that people have in terms of when they actually manage that and how they implement the project. So the kind of example I always give, or the analogy I always give, is that a group might get an application in to get a bus for the community. And then they get the bus and they're delighted, but then they realize that they have no money to pay a driver and they have no money to pay for diesel. They just haven't thought the project through. They went off, did something without planning it. So the key thing about tonight is how you actually put a plan in place for your project so that you're actually planning it long term, and it's done on the basis that it's needed, number one, and secondly, it's done on the basis that it can be sustained. Okay, so that's really important. It has to be needed. People need to have, you have to prove that there's a need for the service or the facility, and you have to show you can sustain it. Once you can do both those things, then you get funding. Okay, if you can't show both those things, I'd be questioned why you're doing it in the first place. But it'd be certainly questioned by the funders as to why you're doing it. So the planning process or project planning process is simply gathering the needs. So it's looking at what people want. That's done through a community consultation process. It's identifying what facilities and services are not in the community. So it'd be like looking at, okay, we don't have a playground, we don't have footpaths, we don't have proper lighting, we've no broadband, or we've no community facility, or we've no proper sports facilities, all these things. You talk to the stakeholders, so other groups that are in the area, so other pubs and communities in the area, to make sure that you're not duplicating what they're doing. Like Kerry County Council, local development companies like any WKD or South Kerry Partnership, to see what their plans are, where their funding is focused on, what sort of strategy they have, and you start talking to government departments in terms of how they can support your project. So that's where you consult with the external groups that can support you. So you identify the needs based on the analysis. So you look at the analysis, you look at what the information you get back and say, okay, based on the information we have, we now know what the needs are. We now can start developing the project. That's when you look at what the project's going to be. So it's going to be a community facility, is it going to be a tidy towns plan, is it going to be a new building for enterprise, is it going to be a childcare facility, is it going to be Meals on Wheels, a new pitch in the sports ground, all these things. It doesn't matter what it is. It has to be based on a need to be identified in the community. Once you identify the project, you then cost the project, so how much it's going to cost, how much we need to actually get this project off the ground. and you start looking at the potential funding sources that are there. Okay, so a lot of groups do is they identify the funding sources first and they work backwards. Okay, so they try to make a project or create a project that's going to fit the funding. Okay, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's really not the way to do it, because what happens then is you start creating projects to meet the funding need.
Tom, you've just gone off there for a bit.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Can hear you now. Yeah, there was some interference and then you went mute.
Okay, I'll just chat. So yeah, so I don't know what part to go off at.
I'd say go back 4 sentences, I'd say.
Okay, so basic needs analysis first, in the consultation process, do the gaps and look at the gaps in services, and then look at the stakeholder consultation in terms of talk to groups that are external, in terms of how they can support you. And then the key thing is that you identify the needs and define the project. The point maybe that you missed was around the funding sources. Some groups, what they'll do is they'll try to target a fund and then create a project to meet that fund. Instead, you should have the needs identified, have a plan in place, and then look for the funding for that, rather than the other way around. Because what groups do when they chase funding and they try to make a project with the funding source, normally that project can't be sustained long term, right? Because there's no real need for it. You haven't identified need for it. They get no backing from the community because it was never needed in the first place, and they struggle to actually to support it and sustain it long term. So don't go creating projects to match the funds. Create the project and then try to find funds that match the project, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's the planning process. The key thing really is at the start is gathering the information and data. So without information, without any sort of a clue what's needed, or any idea in terms of what people actually want or don't want, it's impossible, absolutely impossible to come up with a project. Some people do, because you might have a team of 3 people on a committee who think they know what's needed and they come up with a project themselves, and they push that project forward and through. And sometimes that goes all the way to actually getting funding. The problem then is that the community hasn't been brought along in the process, and the community won't support it. The community have to be behind the project from day one. So you have to be able to collect that information and gather that information. So when we're doing a community plan, for example, we'll have a public meeting. And we're not community planning meetings at a public meeting where 10 people have showed up, which is a waste of time. So I tell them to go home because it's a waste of time. And I've been at meetings in Killeedy, for example, that plan I was talking about earlier on, 180 people turn up to the public meeting. The population is about 400 people. So nearly half the population turned up, of all ages, turned up to the public meeting. What that meant was basically when they were looking for funding and they had a project plan in place, they said to the funders, we have the entire community pretty much behind this project, because they turned up to the meeting and said they wanted X, Y, and Z. Okay, so it's really important that the community back it. If they don't, it's very difficult to justify getting the funding. Okay, and it's very difficult to get the support afterwards, because when you're trying to fundraise, you're going to have issues because they say, well, we didn't want this project in the first place. This was never our idea. Why are you looking for money off us? Whereas if they look for it at the start, they should support it afterwards. So the information that you require will be demographic information, which is basically information about the population, how many people are in the community, age profile, how many older people, how many young people, how many new families moved into the area, is there an issue with planning applications for new housing, what's the unemployment levels like in the community, what's the industrial base in the community, is it all agriculture, is it a mix of agriculture, tourism, industry, all these things. These are all important because you're trying to build a case for the funding and build a case for the plans. So if we're doing a project, let's say where we're looking at maybe community facilities for younger people, we have to show that there's young people in the community. So if the community say to me, Tom, we need a creche, and we need a creche badly because there's 30 kids in the area and there's no creche, I say that's fantastic. But when they reach 4 years of age and go to national school, is there 30 more babies going to be born in the next 3 years that's going to fill that creche? Well, I don't know, Tom, but there's no planning being got, there's no one building houses, there's no new families. So I say, unless the families that are currently going nuts and have loads of babies, this creche won't be viable in 5 to 6 years' time, because the babies will be in national school. So you look at the demographics in terms of proving the need for it. If it's a sports organisation, a sports club, GA club, soccer club, boxing club, tennis club, whatever it might be, again, if they're trying to get facilities, you have to show that there's going to be new members coming up constantly that are going to make the club sustainable. So for years, funding was pumped into pitches all over the country. And the problem is now that many of those clubs don't have teams, they don't have players, they don't have underage teams. So you got unbelievable facilities, dressing rooms, floodlights, sand-based pitches, and no players. Because the demographics, the population have declined, there's not enough people there to actually sustain the club. So what we try to do is using demographics and population figures and things like that, we kind of make a case for the reason why this project should be supported. We look at socioeconomic profile, so that's basically in terms of the situation in terms of unemployment, job creation, school dropout, social housing, transport provision, all things that impact on the society. So for example, if there's no transport provided between a village and a nearest town, there's no opportunity for people to go to work, there's no opportunity for people to go to education. If there's no facilities locally for people to work from home, work remotely, it won't create any job opportunities in the local area. People have to commute to work in larger towns. So you do the socioeconomic profile to make a case again for the reason why you're doing certain things. Then we do a kind of facilities audit or services audit. So we just ask people what facilities you have in your community. Most parishes now or villages might have a pub, which is barely surviving. The post office, which didn't survive and is gone. The national school, which is barely surviving in terms of enrollment. And that's pretty much it. And maybe a GA club, or maybe a sports facility, or maybe a bit of a park or something. But that's probably about it. So they mightn't have proper broadband. They mightn't have any proper facilities. They might have no community facilities. The school might have no playground. Might be no car parking in the school. Church roof might be falling in. All these things might be missing within the community. And we try to do an audit in terms of what are the gaps there and why those services might be needed. Then we work in towns where there's loads of services and loads of facilities. So the problem might be that there's no resources there, there's no volunteers there to actually run them, there's no money there to keep them going. So it's all based on the location and what's needed, but you have to prove a point and make a case for what you're trying to do. Resource audit would be based on volunteers. Have you the volunteers locally to actually do the project, manage the project, develop the project? Have you the human resources? Have you key people that are going to get involved in the project at a board level or committee level? Have you the skills locally? So if I'm working on a project with a community and I'm working with a project team, might be building projects, I'll ask them, is there anyone locally that's an architect, engineer, either working or retired, that can give us a bit of a hand in this and give us some advice on it? Is there a solicitor, an accountant, a marketing person, a business person, a social media consultant, whatever the project is? Is there someone locally that can actually step in, give us a hand here in the project and become one committed? What are the needs of the community? Again, by asking them what people want, what people need, and that can vary. Like I remember we did a village plan. I won't say where it wasn't in Kerry, it was also in Limerick, and they wanted they couldn't understand why there wasn't done stores in the village. They'd done stores, and someone else wanted a bowling alley, and someone else wanted a cinema. The population of the village was something like 350 people. And they're going, seriously, but that's what they wanted. That's what they said we put into the plan, but it wasn't going to happen, obviously. So you have to be realistic in terms of what your needs are. There is needs there. Everyone wants certain things, but certain things won't be provided. So you have to be realistic around it. The gaps are really important. So you need to identify where the gaps are. Why is there no proper storage facility? Why is there no proper broadband? Why is there no footpaths leading into the village? Why is there no speed signs? Why is there no tourist information points? All this kind of stuff. We try to identify those gaps, and then we try to say, okay, why are those things needed, and make a case for those things to be put in and to be funded. And then what I do is I don't reinvent the wheel. Okay, so we look at models of best practice elsewhere. So we were recently asked to get involved in a project up in Laois, in a village in Laois near Port Harlington, and they wanted to develop there's no cafe or any kind of social place outside the pub to go to the village, and they get a bit footfall in terms of tourism because there's walking nearby. So they wanted to develop a community cafe, and they asked me how to do it. So I sent them on a road trip down to Comedy in Limerick, where they have created a very, very good, successful community cafe funded by themselves and by leader funding. And it's a really good model, and it's really doing really, really well, and it's very successful. So I sent them down there to talk to them. the people in the community were delighted because they were very proud of their community cafe and were more than happy to talk to another group about how to do it. And they told them about the problems they faced, the issues they faced, the challenges they faced. And it has saved them an awful lot of time and effort and heartache because they now know what the problems are and the issues are before they start. They know what not to do and they know what to do. So when we're working on any project, we always say to the groups that there's a very, very good model here of this elsewhere, whether it be in Kerry or whether it be in Limerick or Galway or wherever it doesn't make a difference. We get people to go and see how those projects work, how they were funded. In some cases, they'll even give a copy of the plan, their business plan or their feasibility study and say, this is what we identified, this is how we did it. But they'll definitely talk about how they got it funded and what sort of problems they faced. So it saves you an awful lot of time when you're developing your own projects locally. And in some cases, I would say to groups, don't do this because this project won't work, or this project won't be successful, or this project won't be funded, or this project's not needed. Now, that's why I'm brought in, because I'm the objective person that says to someone, look, hang on a second, stop now before you spend any more time and money on this because it's not going to work. And we maybe look at the project in a different way and look at can we revise it in some way. So that's the information that people need. If you don't have that information, you really will find it very difficult to make a good, strong case and argument for your funding when you're looking for funding. So what are these studies called? We call it a community plan, community study, a community and economic plan, feasibility study, health check. So health checks are very useful. A lot of towns, Listowel did one and Tralee did one over the last, I suppose, 5 years now, where the complete review of what's in the town, what's not in the town, and what the issues are within the town, and then come up with a plan as to how to address those issues. If it's for a project for an organisation, so let's say you're a sports club or community volunteer organisation, and you're developing a project internally for your organisation, so it's going to benefit the community, but it's really an internal project. You do things like an organisation review. So where's the organisation at? And then you do a strategic plan. So I'm going to be doing work on Saturday with Recovery Haven in Tralee to look at a review of where they're at and then looking at their plan going forward. And that's going to be based on an analysis and a review and looking at what the needs are and then putting a plan in place as how to best address those needs. So it doesn't have to be just a community, it could be a group or a club. Or it could be a facilities development plan. So again, we do a lot of work with communities that are developing facilities. That could be childcare facilities, community facilities, educational facilities, or sports facilities. And again, we base it on what the needs of the community are. So a lot of groups and communities now are developing what's called multi-purpose sports hubs, where they're, rather than every club having its own facility, they'll develop one large facility for the entire community, and all the clubs get to use that. Okay, so example that locally would be Arkpert, I suppose, in their Arkpert Recreation Centre Ark, where it's the GA club, the athletics club, and the hurling club all use it, but it's also used by local groups as well, and then other groups use it for training purposes and stuff. So it's a multi-purpose, multi-site location. Kanturk have done one recently where it's a natural pitch for the entire community, and it's run by the community group rather than any one specific club. So again, it's looking at what those facilities are, and can you then latch on other facilities onto that, like walking tracks around it, or maybe small play area or sensory gardens or things like that around the site to kind of have it as a really multi-purpose facility. We're doing a plan at the moment for Kilmeedy where they've purchased the site in the community, and they're developing what's going to be called an environmental or an eco and recreational park, and it's going to have things like markets. It's going to have some craft areas for craft workshop areas. It's going to have a wellness area with saunas and steam rooms and ice baths and all that kind of stuff, and sensory gardens, walking trails. And this is in the village, like in West Limerick. It's going to be amazing when it's finished, but it's basically an amalgamation of what the community wants in one site, and it's going to go over 5 years in phases. So again, that's just sort of like comes, okay, community saying this is what we need in a community. Let's buy the bloody site and then see if we can develop it afterwards what we need. Okay, so those studies are called those things, and these are what are needed when you're looking to get funding. You have to have some sort of study like that to back up the needs and to prove your case. So what's the purpose? It's really, the purpose is to develop a profile. So you want to present a profile of your area or of your organisation, because you're looking for funding to Kerry County Council, or local development company, or to government departments. They're not going to know everything about you. They might be familiar with the area, obviously, because they're in the county. But if it's a civil servant above in Dublin in a department, they won't know the first thing about Causeway or Kilgarvan or Dua or Brosna or anything like that. They might know Tralee and Killarney, but they certainly won't know the smaller areas. So you've got to develop a profile for them to say, this is what we're about on here. You have to determine the need. And that's really, really important. Not make up the need. Some people lie about it. Oh, we've done a consultation process and they said we need X, Y, and Z, and they made it up. That's not the way to do it. You have to show there's a need there. And you have to prove that through, showing that you've done consultation and the analysis of that consultation process. Basically, the information that you're getting is going to be put into any sort of strategy or plan. So you're going to use that information, put that information into your documents. So if you've got a business plan, or if you've got your strategic plan, or if you've got your grant application, you'll be putting that in the description within the plan that we've done the needs analysis and this is what we found, and just bullet point it. If you can't show that, you really can't put together any sort of application. Your community plan or your study will support the grant application. Sometimes the funding bodies will look for, if you've done a feasibility analysis, that to be submitted with the application. If they don't look for it, what we tend to do is just cut and paste parts of the study into the application. So this will just strengthen the application. And then finally, and the most important thing, is that the project plan that you put together should be able to show that the project is viable and sustainable. Okay, what I mean by that is that if you start it, you can continue it. That if you get €1 million to build a community hall or extend your hall in your community, that you can afford insurance to license, and you've got volunteers that will open and close the doors in the morning and the night time, that will clean the place, that will maintain the place, and you've got people that will look after the management of it, look after the funding of it, and look after everything else. And that's going to be from now on to whatever time, whenever that building falls down, which could be forever. So you have to show how you can sustain it long term as well. That's becoming really, really important when it comes to funding, because the government realise, the county council realise, local development companies realise, and I realise that an awful lot of projects were funded years ago weren't sustainable, and you have an awful lot of empty buildings, derelict sites, vacant properties, unused facilities all over the country because they were never needed in the first place. They just got funding, money was pumped into them for no reason, and now they're struggling to stay open. So what's happening now is government departments and funding organisations will want you to show them how you can sustain your project. So, for example, if you know fundraising skills or experience or track record, I'd be questioning as to see why they would fund it, because they will look at this and say, okay, this group are borrowing money. They're applying for grants. They're borrowing money for the balance of the funding. They have no fundraising done. They have no resources themselves, and they have no track record of fundraising. So if we give them all this money and they borrow the rest of it, they haven't proven to us that they can actually generate any money afterwards to cover the running costs or repay their loans. So we're not going to pass them the ball, because we know they're going to drop the ball. So they'll move on to the next project and fund the other project. So you have to be able to show you can sustain it. Really, really important. And there's no point saying you will say, oh yeah, we'll sustain, no problem, we'll get a fundraise, no problem. They look at your track record. They don't have a track record. You're going to find it difficult. So the key thing is, don't go starting something if you can't finish it and you can't sustain it. So where did you get the information from? Well, for the last 6 years, we were living in a vacuum of information because the census wasn't done because of COVID. So the last census was done in 2016, right? So up until now, we were operating on data that was 6 years old, okay? Which obviously is problematic, because anyone that wasn't born 6 years ago wasn't in any census data, and anyone that died in the last 6 years was still on the census data. So population figures are out, population figures are incorrect. All the data was available for anyone, whether it be government departments or local authorities or community groups to work from. It was all outdated information. So it was difficult because you're using information that wasn't really relevant. Thankfully, the 2022 census was done and it's been published, and most of that is published now, so it's available for yourselves to review and to use in your analysis. The deprivation index is basically how disadvantaged an area is. Now, no one wants to say their community is disadvantaged until you look for funding. Then you want to say your community is disadvantaged because you get additional points, you get additional marks, you get additional funding. So you need to see if your area is actually classified as disadvantaged. Now, the way they classify disadvantaged is based on the levels of unemployment in an area, amount of vacant properties in the area, the number of one-parent families in the area, the number of, and then rural depopulation and things like that. So there's a whole range of categories and criteria used to kind of determine if an area is disadvantaged or not. And some areas, like take say Tralee Town, some areas are disadvantaged, classified disadvantaged, and other areas aren't classified disadvantaged. If you take areas like say, again like Killarney wouldn't be, but then there'd be areas around Killarney that would be considered depending on the criteria used. So it's important to know where your community fits in terms of deprivation. You need to look at government policy, because government policy is going to dictate where money goes to. So if your project doesn't really kind of mirror what's happening at a national level or local level in terms of a county plan or a national plan, you're kind of, fighting against it from the very start. So if the government's policy is to support rural areas by providing recreational sports facilities in communities, and your project does that, then you're ticking the box. If it's about providing enterprise space for remote workers in rural areas, and your project is looking at converting part of your building into a remote working space, then you're ticking the box. But if your project isn't really meeting the objectives of national policy, they're not going to fund it, because why would they fund it? Their money is going to be directed towards their policies. So you need to know what those policies are, and what's in those reports and what's in those strategies as well. There is existing research available pretty much across everything in terms of if you work with people with disabilities, there's lots of work done around research and studies in relation to people with disabilities. If you're involved in a sports organisation, all the governing bodies will have 5-year strategic plans, which is basically research conducted in relation to what are the needs of that sport over the next 5 years, what are the objectives in terms of increasing participation in sport. If you're working with young people, there'll be strategies and reports written around how to support young people through childcare, through education, through youth development, whatever it might be, across the country. And every sector pretty much would have some policy or some strategy or some research carried out on that. Okay, so for example, if we're doing a tourism plan for a town or for a community or parish, we would look at the county tourism strategy, we look at the national tourism strategy, we look at North Ireland's data, and all this kind of stuff, which is already there and it's already available. And thanks to Google, you can just literally research that yourself. You don't need to have consultants doing it for you, you can do it yourself. Then you look at primary research. So primary research is where you're getting the information from the community yourself directly. So it's asking those questions locally in terms of, okay, right guys, what do you want? It's talking to young people, what do you want in your village? What do you want in your town? What are the issues facing you? It's talking to people with disabilities. What are your concerns? What are your issues? What are the main concerns for you in this town, in this village? And then it's looking at models of best practice, looking at reports, case studies, site visits, to look at can we get ideas and I suppose inspiration from other organisations and from other communities that have done this, and ultimately look at where they got funding from, and then say to the local politicians, look, they did this above in Donegal, why can't we do it down here, lobby for us and make it happen. There's precedent set that this is done elsewhere, there's no reason why it should be done in Kerry, and fight for it. Okay, but you need to go armed with that information when you're going to do it. So the first thing we look at is the census. So the census is, and the CSO can be a bit of a nightmare in terms of trying to get the data, right? Sorry, it used to be a bit of a nightmare, but it's improved an awful lot. It's become way more user friendly. So you go into the website, not thinking about, I'll be just slow up everything, but this is the page basically you go to, and it's done through an interactive map, right? So, and you can search for information on your local authority area. So I think just picked that for tonight's presentation. So it highlights Kerry as the local authority area. You go into electoral areas. So electoral areas is your areas like your EDs in each part of the community. So there's loads in there. Or then you can even go down to a very small area. So small area would be like small area within the local electoral area. So small area for me might be like a housing estate. So it brings down to very much small detail and focused information on the area you're in. So if you're doing a community plan, or if you're doing a needs analysis in Ballybunion, for example, you don't need to know what the entire population of the county is or what the issues are in the rest of the county, because it's relevant to you. you just want to focus on the electoral area that Ballybunion's in, and then a small area that's covered by Ballybunion. And that will tell you, so when you click on, like I'm not going to hear some screenshot, but if you click on the area, it brings up your graphs in terms of population, so male, female, and then you can go into more detailed information in terms of, let's say, transport, broadband access, and all the kind of information that's there available to it. So it's worthwhile. No, it's kind of boring to be honest, but it's worthwhile for someone in your organization to spend maybe half a day basically going in and downloading all the information and stats that are relevant to your area. So if you're working in a small area, like in a community or even a housing estate or in a parish, you can get that information now. Spend a half day gathering that information from the CSO website. You can do it in nice kind of charts and graphs you want to. You can simply just download it on the Excel spreadsheets that are available to download from the site. And the beauty is that's not going to change for another 4 years, because that census that won't be updated until the next census is done. So again, it's looking at, well, there's a lot of work involved this time, but there's not really. It's a half day's work, and that half day's work is going to last for you for until the next census is done. Okay, it won't change, because the census information that you're dealing with is going to same information that everyone else is dealing with. Okay, so that's the website. The CSO, and that's the page that you go to bring up this map. And you just click on the area. You go into here to bring down local area, whatever it might be, and then you're just gather information. You know that then. Okay. So I don't know what's happening to my screen here. Someone's scribbling on my fun presentation. I don't know if you can see that or not. Anyway, so where we're doing things now.
I think you're stuck with it for the rest of the slides unless you delete it. Yeah.
Okay, that's no problem. So that's fine. Right. So the reports and strategies then. So again, with there's something I suppose that I do with the groups I work with. You have to look at what national policy is and what local policy is and what local strategy are. So Kerry County Council have launched their development plan, Kerry County Development Plan for 2028, right? So that's 6 years. So we're in 2023 now, so we're 1 year into it. But for another 5 years, what's in that plan isn't going to change greatly, right? So the objectives at county level in terms of what's their focus, what's their policy, what are they open to do under a whole series of categories under, let's say, housing, roads, tourism, enterprise, community, recreation, all these things. It's all in the county development plan, okay? So what I would recommend you do is you identify the project that you want to develop. So that might be youth project, Thai Towns project, sports project, whatever it is, right? Go to the section in the county development plan that's relevant to your project, identify the objectives, cut and paste them all there and say, okay, the objective of Kerry County Council is to X, Y, and Z. Hang on a second, our project is actually going to help you achieve those objectives. So you're showing then that your project is meeting the needs, meeting the objectives of the county development plan. That county development plan would have been based on or been framed around the two main national policies, which is the National Planning Framework and the Rural Development Policy 2021 to 2025. So all the government funding that's gone into the communities over the last number of years, in terms of like the Rural Regeneration Development Fund, town and village renewal schemes, community enhancement programs, the Community Enterprise Centre Fund, the Connected Hubs Network funding, all that funding all came from recommendations in these two documents. All the county development plans at national level through every county have been framed around these two documents, okay? So you get those documents, you download them, and again, you look at what's relevant within those documents to your project, okay? And again, you say, okay, this project that we're developing reflects the policies outlined in the National Planning Framework, or Rural Future, and in the County Development Plan. Just those three alone will do it. You can also add in more strategies if you want. If you're the sports project, you bring in the governing bodies strategy as well. And all you're saying is to the powers that be and the funders, look, we're not doing something crazy and unique here. We're doing something that's going to actually help you achieve your objectives. So if they've got a policy, they have to fund that policy. They have to give a policy to promote rural areas. They have to have the funds to promote rural areas. If you've got a project that's going to do promotion of it, then you're saying to them, look, you wanted us to do this, use the money to do us, give us the money to do it for you. That's basically what you're saying in a nutshell. But if you don't know how your projects fit into these three things, then you're going to find it hard to make that argument. Okay, again, there's a bit of work involved in it because you've got to read these things, not from cover to cover. I've never read any of these things cover to cover. I just go in and search for the relevant sections that are relevant to the project I'm working on, cut and paste it, and say, right, there you go. That's what you said you want to do. We're doing it for you. Okay, and that would change between one project. But if you're in a small area working on one project, you don't have to do this, for the next 5 years because these strategies and plans are in place for until 5 years' time. So they won't change. Do it once, you've done it. You don't do it anymore. And the same for every application you go forward. It's the same information anyway, so it won't change. Primary research then. So you have information you get from people locally within the community. Okay, so it's well and good having census information. Or the population of an area is X, Y, and Z. The number of people employed is whatever. The number of vacant properties is whatever in the community. It's fine having all that information, right? And you can say, geez, there's lots of vacant properties. What can we do with it? Or there's lots of unemployment. What can we do about that? Or there is, there's a huge gap there in terms of facilities for young people. What do we do about that? And what happens is you've got normally a committee or a group of people that are coming up with ideas based on the analysis they've done, right? But they forget to ask people. These facilities are needed, but we never asked them what they wanted in those facilities. We think there's facilities needed, but they might be needed. So what we do when we go to groups for the first time, they say, Tom, can you help us with a plan? I'll ask them what sort of community consultation you've done. Sometimes I get a blank stare back at me. And sometimes I get said, oh, there's no need for that. There'll be only waste time. There'll be only cause problems. There'll be given open meetings. And I get this the whole time. You can't do a project plan without community plan in place or community support behind it. So hold a public meeting. People think that they can cause problems. They don't. No, you can get that person will cause a problem, but that's fine too. So during COVID, there was no public meetings. Everything was done via Zoom, and there was very little innovation because people weren't talking. They weren't putting new ideas. They weren't kind of brainstorming. They weren't having a chat about stuff. It was all very formal and kind of clinical on Zoom, so it didn't really work very well. But all people are back doing public meetings again. I had my first public meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was brilliant because the buzz and energy you got from the people in the on the ground in terms was fantastic. And you knew that they would support this 100% when it was developed. So public meeting is important, but you have to make sure people are aware the public meeting is on, and you have to make it at a time that's available to people. So it has to be nighttime, so everyone gets to it. There's no set formula as to the number of people should attend the public meeting, but the more the better. And the better representation that's there, the better as well. Very often public meetings, very few young people go to them. And I talk about young people under 40 go to them, right? Which is a bad thing because you don't get representation, you won't get to use young people. And it's difficult to get them involved, but you have to. So if you're not coming to public meetings, you need to get them involved in other ways. We do online surveys. You can do paper-based surveys if you want to, but it's online surveys is so much easier for yourselves if you're doing any sort of public consultation. You can use Google Forms or SurveyMonkey. They don't have to be overly complicated. The great thing about an online survey is that people from your community who no longer live in the community can also get involved. So people that are working in Dublin, who can't come to public meetings because they're working during the week, people that are in college away, people that are living in the UK, people that are living abroad that come home at Christmas time, people who are living abroad and would love to come back to their community, but they can't because there's no jobs, there's no housing, there's no planning permission, those sorts of things. So we did a plan for Brandon Mahan a few years back, and a lot of the diaspora people that were from the area who moved away actually completed the survey to give their opinions. And it was really good because they said the reason we left the area was because we didn't get a job. We want to go back there because we can work remotely from there, but we can't because we can't build a house there. Right? That's really good information to get to give to a local authority and say, this is the issue, we're trying to address it here somewhere. So an online survey, it doesn't have to be a 7-page survey, it can be very simple, 1 page or whatever it might be. And that survey could be like to community group or to whoever. It doesn't have to be, to a community, it could be done like through membership. If it's a club, you might do a full public survey, you might just do a survey of parents and the players. So when we do surveys for clubs, we normally do a committee survey, so the coaches and committee members, then we do survey of the parents, then we do survey of each team in terms of the age group. So the juvenile section, the academy up to maybe 10 years of age, then 10 to 15, and then the 16, 17-year-olds, and then the senior players. And we get their feedback and their opinions, because a 6-year-old opinion of a club is going to be way different than a 26-year-old's opinion of a club. And a parent's opinion of the club is going to be different than their child's opinion of the club. So you try to get everyone's views and inputs into it. You look for submissions or inputs from groups and clubs. So if you're doing a community plan, you ask clubs and groups, can you basically give your input, your ideas into the actual strategy of the plan. Focus groups. So focus group is where at a public meeting, there's a huge gap in terms of people that should be there aren't there. So, for example, it is very rare, unless a parent is bringing a child along because they can't get a childminder, you'll see a child at a public meeting, right? Or sometimes they're forced to go along to give their opinion that they don't want to be there in the first place. So what we do is we work with the schools, then we ask the teachers, can you do a bit of research with your kids, the kids in the school. So we give them maybe A3 sheets of paper, and they'll scribble along on the paper what they want in the community. They draw what they want in their town, what they want in the village. They talk about what the problems are they're facing, what they like to see growing up, that kind of stuff. And that's really, really important, because they're young people that will live in the community down the line. If it's teenagers who won't get involved in anything because it's not cool to get involved in it, you meet with teenage groups. You meet with, if there's a youth club, if there's a youth centre. If not, you're trying to, you talk to maybe sports clubs and get, some young people together in a room and ask them the question in terms of what they want. I remember years ago we did a study for a disability organisation here in Tralee, and we met the parents of the young people with disabilities, and I said, well, we want to meet young people as well. And so that's fine, we bring the young people with us, or our sons and daughters with us as well. That's no, I want to meet them separately without you being in the room. So we brought in a facilitator to come into the room with me, and we invited all the young people in, and we asked them, very simply, what do you want? And one guy said to me, who was 29, I think, said to me, you're the first person who ever asked me what I wanted. I was being told what I wanted for the last 29 years, because he had a disability, and people felt that he wasn't able to give his opinion or give his ideas, and we were the first people to ask him that. So you have to talk to people to find out what they want. We were involved in a skate park project years ago, back in 2001 in Tralee, and some skaters came to me and said, Tom, can you do a plan for a skate park? And we got the council engineers involved, more people involved, and the adults in the room at the committee meetings were taken over. And the young person said to me, I said to them, why are you here? Because we're the engineer or we're the whatever. And I said, well, you're not skaters, we're the skaters, so we should be telling you what we need, not you telling us what we need. And I was delighted, because it made perfect sense. There's no point in an adult telling the young person what they want. The young person has to tell the adult what they want, and it's up to the adult to find a way of getting it for them. So we do focus groups and bringing in people specifically to talk to them about certain things. That could be an active card group. What do you want as older people in the community? How would you like to see different? It could be moms and toddlers, so asking moms and parents what they want. It could be, it could be anyone. It depends what you're trying to do. We do interviews, so we talk to people one-on-one. We talk to people who are, one guy we talked about in Cullehill in County Laois, a small village on the old Cork to Dublin Road. He was 92 years of age, lived all his life in Cullehill. He was the best person in the world to talk to, because he knew everything about Cullehill, the history of the area, what he saw over the years, what he thought was good and bad. And we interviewed him on a one-to-one basis. So talk to people who have knowledge, talk to people who can actually give input. So that's how you get your primary information. So without the primary data, without asking people what they want, how are you supposed to put a project together? So we get people come to us saying, Tom, we need office space. For what? For remote workers. Why? We need remote workers. Is there remote workers looking for space in the community? No, but if we put in office space, we get them. And what if you don't get them? Now you have office space that's not needed. So why not just create a community room, and if someone happens to want an office down the line, partition an office and office. But don't go spending money on office when there's no need for it. The other one was, again, a playground. Playgrounds, everyone wants playgrounds. Okay, fine, who's going to manage the playground afterwards? Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to insure it? How are you going to pay for insurance? And all these questions are asked, then you don't want it anymore because you realize there's work involved. So everyone wants everything on, so they ask them, okay, who's going to actually do the work? Some community meetings we say, okay, right, who wants to get involved? Who wants what in the community? They all say this is what we want and it'll be great, it's all fantastic and supposing. And then we say the next meeting, no, we're going to form teams of people to do something. And the next meeting, no one shows up because they've got to do something, right? So the project is never going to happen anyway. So you have to ask people what they want, and you have to ask people how they're going to support it. Okay, so if we do this project, because you said you want it, will you give us money for it? If we fundraise, will you support it? Will you come on board as a volunteer? Will you help out? Okay, if you're not going to, then you question why you're doing the project. That's right. So it doesn't matter. You can get all the information you want from census information, whatever. But unless you've got the needs identified at local level through a community process, you can't say to a government agency or to a funder, we know this is needed, because it asks you how do you know. Unless you write to them and say we've done the process, you have to show that you've done the process. What we tend to do to prove that, because you have to prove it, is we'll do a photo of the community meeting. So from, we go back to a big photo, a group photo of everyone, so like 100 people in the room, we take a photograph of it. We'll ask everyone to document their ideas on paper, in a room, around the room. We ask people to put ideas on the post note, put it on a flip chart. We take a photograph of that. We take a photograph of all the comments. We collate all the comments and feedback, and we put that as an appendix into the actual application or to the study. So that's proof that it was done. Okay, otherwise you can just make it up, and if you make it up, you're just lying to them. Stakeholders. So your stakeholders then are basically anyone that is directly either impacted by the project. Okay, so in other words, your members, if you've got a group or if you're an organization, and anyone that's potentially going to support either financially or support in other ways the project going forward. Okay, so sponsors. If you've got sponsors already involved in your community or in your project or in your clubs, talk to them. How can we do things better for them? What do they like about us? What don't they like about us? How can we get more involved with them? Kerry County Council will be your first point of call for most things. Planning. The County Council are administering an awful lot of the national funding now, like the RDF, Town of the Renewal Scheme, Community Recognition Fund. All these projects are all funded, are all managed by the council. The council are responsible for strategy at local level. The council are responsible for an awful lot of the public infrastructure in communities. So you have to be liaising with them. You have to build up a relation with them. You have to know who the people are, and you have to help them as well in terms of making their job easier as well, because they're there to support you, but you're also there to support them because you're people on the ground. And the county council and local development companies and government departments will support communities that are doing the right thing in the right way and that are easy to deal with. They won't support communities that are difficult to deal with. Why would they? They're human beings. Why would you deal with someone that's problematic, that's causing problems the whole time? So work with them rather than working against them. And I say this not just because I'm Kerry and because it's Kerry PPN. I say this to every single county. I work in many counties, and I say the same thing to everyone. You've got to work with your local authority because they have to support you on most of the projects. Any WKD, if you're in North East West Kerry or in Tralee, NWKD is the local development company that will support you with your projects. They'll support you through grant support. They've got development workers there that will support you on the projects as well, advise you, support you, get you information, identify maybe opportunities for funding, and obviously with our funding sources as well. South Kerry Partnership, the exact same way. If you're going to South Kerry, maybe South Kerry Partnership, South Kerry Development Partnership that you'll be working with. If you're in parts of East Kerry, you might come under IRD Duhallows area. So the IRD Duhallow you'll be dealing with. And if you're in the Great Brook areas, you'll be dealing with Ross Great Brook. Okay, so they're the development agencies that are there to support and develop rural areas, rural communities, and towns and villages. They're paid a salary to. I worked in one of them myself. I worked in two of them, one in Dublin, one in what was Partnership 3, now part of WKD, for a couple of years, and I worked in North South Partnership in Dublin for a couple of years. So my job was working in local development, working as a community officer, supporting communities. That was my job. My job was to support communities. Their job was to support communities as well. Use their support, use their advice and information, their contacts, and see if you can get the projects funded under them as well. Fault Ireland, if you're a tourism project or in a tourism area, Fault Ireland again supports for projects, information, advice, training, and possibly funding as well. Government departments. So look what government department is most relevant to you, to your organisation and to your community. Some of your communities will kind of overlap a number of departments. Others might be just, just one department that you won't be, for example, your sports club will be department of sports, whatever tourism, whatever it's called now. And they'll be a department you're dealing with. So what I do is I tend to contact the departments, find out who key people are in the department in terms of the politicians, the minister, junior minister, senior civil servants. I get on their press releases, so I get on their press database, I suppose, and on their email list. So any press releases, any information is emailed to me, and I go onto their press releases on their websites, and I see exactly relevant there to communities or projects I'm working on. So you've got access into information quickly, and that you can respond to quickly, rather than finding out in 6 months' time. This is a project there or funding there for projects we didn't want to hear about it. We could have applied for grants and we didn't know about it, and we missed the boat. It's up to you to get informed and stay informed. By contacting and staying in contact with all these people and all these organizations, you'll be updated and informed about projects and supports and strategies as come up. If you're involved in sports, if you're a sports organization, I know some of the on your might are, you need to be talking to your governing bodies, right? So if it's GA, the GA Eco Park, or the Munster Council or County Board, if it's the FAI, if it's soccer, IRFU, Athletics Ireland, Tennis Ireland, whatever organisation, whatever sports you're involved in the governing body, talk to them. Talk to the sports partnership here in Kerry County Council. Find out what's going on. So again, look, people always offer work involved in this. There's not. You just put the phone, talk to them, have contact with them, have an email, send an email, not meet them every day. You're not interrogating them every single week. You're just finding out, can you email me when something relevant comes up for our group? And they will. Like you're all members of the Kerry PPN. They have a fantastic website, they have a newsletter, there's information there. So you need to be informed of what's happening, because an awful lot is happening. And next year, trust me, there will be an awful lot out there in relation to funding. And you need to be ready to grab that when it's out there. So keep in contact with all these people. If you are developing a project, talk to them well in advance. There's no point in bringing a project to the local authorities and be supported, and you spend an awful lot of time, energy, and possibly money on this, and then they say we can't support it, it's not eligible, or you won't get planning for it, or this sort of project isn't eligible at all, you won't get funding for it. There's no point in finding out after all the work has been done that it won't get any further. Talk to them in an early stage. So simply going to say, we have an idea to do X, Y, and Z. We have a project in mind. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it would work? We have an outline proposal here for you. Would you be able to support it? Would be something that you can support? Is it meeting your criteria? Yes, it is. It's a fantastic idea. Go off and develop the project, as opposed to the work and find out it wasn't work in the first place. Okay, so there's a question there. Sorry, there's a question in terms of emails. Yes, so sorry, the email list there I mentioned was when you're looking at gathering information and keeping ahead of information. So there's a couple of sources I use on that. One would be the Wheel, so the wheel.ie have a section called Funding Point. And Funding Point is basically a database of grants and funds and kind of sponsor opportunities and donation opportunities in his financial group that comes up and it's updated regularly. So you pay for a membership of that site for the year, and you've no access to that database on an ongoing basis. The second one I would use is Active Link, which is another website that's updated information on training, sports, volunteer supports, grant supports for the community sector. And again, I would keep an eye on that to see what's happening. And then I would contact like PPN and get on their mailing list, contact the local government companies, get on their mailing list, contact the various different government departments that are relevant and get on their mailing list. So basically then when they're issuing, say, a press release to the press, they'll also issue me, sometimes they'll issue me something as well in terms of I'm on the list. But also just go on the various different department sites and they'll update their news section constantly, because they have to, obviously, if they're launch something, they have to announce on their site and keep an eye on it. So there really be someone that's on the commission nominated, maybe not every day, because it's not happening every day, maybe once a week, maybe twice, maybe 2 times a month or something like that. You basically grab a cup of coffee, spend half an hour just going through the various different sites. It take only half an hour because I said they're not updated regularly. And say, is anything happening here now that's relevant to us? Or there is, I need to call a committee meeting to go through it. So just being informed. The groups that are very successful that are out there are on their toes constantly, waiting for information, waiting for opportunities, and then they go after it. Okay, so it's about just being informed. And if you're engaging with your stakeholders or support organizations around you, and you have a relationship with them in terms you know them, it makes life an awful lot easier. Not annoy them and hassle them and torment them, but make sure they know you and you know them. So just get an email of a personal contact. Okay. So research other areas then. So identify models of best practices said in other areas. Typically how you do that is basically if you are applying for funding, the department that's actually allocated the funds will have on their website a list of previous funded projects. So you can see what projects were funded in the past, and you can then start doing the research on those projects. So you Google them and look them up and see what they've done. And you pick the best one, say like, oh, that's really good, I like what they did, they're similar to us, similar area, I might contact them. Okay, so that's how you find them. So a lot of people wonder, how do I find those people? I don't know where they are. They're being funded already. So if they're funded through Leader, you have to put up a list of all the projects they fund. It's been funded by the department, there's copies to the projects they funded as well. If you're networking with other organizations around county or country, again, look what they've done. I find Nationwide is very good. To find out about projects, there's always kind of portray and have like a profile of a project on that show every now and again as well. Okay, so meet our groups who've gone through the process, meet them and ask them what they went through, what they did, what they didn't do, if they're doing again, how they do differently, that kind of stuff. Again, look at other community profiles, download them, but don't plagiarize them, don't copy them, because obviously they're their data, it's their information, and it won't be relevant to you anyway. But look at the way it's structured, look at like a decent community plan, look at the way it's structured, look at the wording they use, how they put it all together. So like the key thing really is, look, you don't need to be hiring consultants the whole time to do this, because it does cost money. And you might be able to get a grant, but in a lot of cases you can't get a grant. So there's probably someone in your community or on your committee that's well able to write a report, to write a proposal. And if you've got a template from another group, it's just templates, it's just kind of structure really. Like all a consultant will do is make it look nice. You got to provide all the information. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on this to get these things done. Look at other examples and see if you can replicate the structure, not the actual content, which I've seen people do. They've left in areas and names of areas. Why you got something about Monaghan in your plan for South Kerry or something? Anyway, so again, look at the other profiles, look at the wording. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? If it's working elsewhere well, whether it's community cafe, community project, sports facility, enterprise centre, childcare group, playground, whatever it is, that's working well, copy it. Okay? If you like the way they fundraised, copy it. If you like the way they go after sponsors, copy it. If you know the way they got granted, go after the same granted. Don't reinvent the wheel. A lot of people think, oh, we do things our own way down here. When I hear that, it means I walk away. Just walk away, because you're like going, why do you want to do something different when you know it works by doing it this way? So it's really important. I've got about maybe, depending on the type of project, about 10 kind of go-to projects that I would always send people to look at or to investigate that are really good models of how this can be done. And I really encourage people to do that. So it's amazing, because it's not like in business where if you go to a business person, like a competitor, and ask them what they did, they won't tell you because you're competition. The communities are different. The communities are very proud of what they did and what they do. And they love showcasing what they did. And they love showcasing what they have. So they'd be delighted to meet you and go through what they have. And they do, because I bring people to areas to show them. So again, it's just looking, getting ideas from other areas. Okay, so the key thing then in terms of, I suppose, the summary points in terms of the getting information is focus on what you need to know. So if you're going looking for information, you need to know what information you're actually looking for. Okay. So when you're doing a community plan, or sorry, community survey, the questions in that survey have to be relevant. There's no point having loads of questions not relevant because you get information that's not relevant back. What's the purpose of these analysis? So why are we doing this? Why are we actually asking people what they want? If you're holding a community meeting or doing a public consultation process, that's going to raise expectations. There's got to be a reason for doing it. So you have to say to people, the reason we're doing this is because there's funding available for community recreation facilities. We have a site in the community. We need to do something with it. We want to know what you want as a community on that site so we can then go off and get the funds. If you're calling a meeting, someone's going to ask, why are we all here? What's this for? Why are you asking us all these questions? If you're like, one, because I was on a course there with Tom O'Leary last week and I thought it'd be great to do it, that's not going to really work for you. Okay, so you need to basically have a reason for doing this. What information you need to show as part of the grant application. This is really important. The information you need to get from the community has to match what's required in your grant application. So if you're doing a grant application, and on the grant application, it asks a question about, I don't know, what will the impact of this project be on your community? And you have no idea because you never asked anyone, then you got to make it up. Okay, whereas you say to someone, as a group, let's say you're meeting young people and you want to develop youth facilities in the community. And you say to them, okay, what do you want in your community? We want a place to hang out and meet, a cafe. We want a cool hangout place to meet up, to meet people, socialize, have a coffee, maybe listen to music, maybe have a gig, maybe, whatever it is, right? Then you'd ask them, okay, well, what would the impact that be? Whether, it gets us out of the road, it gets us to socialize, and, it helps for mental health, all these things. Now you know what the impact is, so you can put that into the grant application. Okay? Because when you're doing the grant application, you can't go back and say, oh, by the way, can we hold another community meeting now because I realize there's a section here in the grant application I can't fill out. So you ask all the relevant questions that are relevant to the application. So you have that information and it makes it easy to fill in the application afterwards. Identify your audience. So who is it you're trying to target? Obviously, if it's a public meeting, it can be anyone, but I like doing the focus groups too, where you're actually meeting individual groups of people that are relevant to your application. Looking at things as disability, young people, older people, whatever it might be. Ask simple but not leading questions. So we tend not to put down a list of options. So we said, what facilities you want for your community. We don't put down a list of options in terms of shops, offices, community centres, because what people do is they tick all the boxes. Because they all obviously want everything, but not going to get everything. So we don't know what's relevant now. So you'd ask them, what are the 5 key things you think this community needs? And then they write them down. Whereas you can give them a list of options, they'll say, oh, we want everything, they tick all the boxes. No good to you, waste of time. Get a view of the cross-section of the community. So you need to get opinions of relevant people in the community. So it's everyone within your community, not just one group of people, not just, whoever come up to the meeting and that's it, and we're going to do with them and no one else. You get everyone's viewpoints. Okay, so if you've got no feedback from young people, or no feedback from parents in the community, or no feedback from business people in the community, you need to want to talk to them. Okay. What stakeholders did we consult with? So who's relevant here? Is it the local authority? Is it what government departments? What local authorities will be dealing with this? What research is out there? What information is already there that can actually kind of gather? And then the last thing is get help in it. Okay, so rather than use consultants and with me basically destroying my own business, right? Rather than paying for consultants and paying for people to do this for you, because it does cost money and it can cost a lot of money depending on who you use. And you might have access to the funds to do it, or you might be able to get the funds to do it. And you thought, okay, we can't do this because we can't pay someone to do it. There is bound to be someone in your community that can help you with this, right? That has time, might be retired, looking for something to do. But also talk to your third level. Go to MTU in Tralee and say to them there, look, is there anyone in your business studies course that is looking for a placement? Do any of your business studies or social studies students have to do a research project? And they do have to do placements. Well, can we pick or community study or plan as part of the research project, and they'll do a lot of the work for you. So, for example, the health check that was done in the Stone a number of years ago, and the health check that was done in Tralee a number of years ago, was actually done in collaboration with MTU. The students did most of the work on it, and it cost nothing, but it cost a bit, but it didn't cost as much. If you went to a company in Dublin or Limerick or Galway or Cork to come down and do a community profile or a health check, it would look fantastic, yeah, but you pay a fantastic amount of money as well for it. So again, don't think that, oh, we can't do this ourselves. We can, and you get help from people to do it. We get some companies get TY students to do it as a project. Now you need to supervise obviously that, but they can put together a survey. They can they can do a lot of work for you, do the research for you as part of the TY project. Again, look at getting help on getting this work done. As I said, it sounds like an awful lot of work. It really isn't, trust me, it isn't an awful lot of work. Because, thankfully, because of the internet and Google, nothing's there at your fingertips. You don't have to go into libraries and research for, you do all this yourself. And as I said, if it's done once, it's done. You don't have to do it every week. If you do a community profile, now, using census information is there now, using the strategies at national level there now, that won't change. In terms of the data won't change for the next 4 or 5 years. What will change is people's needs. They will change. So you have to go back to people and see how the needs are changing. Okay, so like as I said, the parents or family that are moved into community that don't have any kids probably don't really engage with the community because there's no need to. They're not involved in the school, not involved in the club. They're just there. They kind of commute and load of work. So they go into, I know our own experience. We moved to Causeway or from Tralee, my wife's from Mullingar. When we moved back out here in 2005, we no kids. We weren't involved in the thought. I was going to Tralee to work every day. She was going to Tralee to work every day. And it was only when our first child was born that we started going to the creche that we started getting involved in the community. Now we're stuck in the club. We're stuck in a committee up there in terms of developing their community hall, and we're involved in lots of things. Okay, so as people progress in terms of age, in terms of their family status, in terms of kids, whatever it might be, their needs are changing as well. Okay, so it's important to keep in contact. So what some groups do, and some communities do, is they might do maybe an annual kind of gathering of people, a kind of a public event, a social event, and through that then they get feedback from the community. Okay, this is what we did last year. What's changed for you as a group or community in the last number of years? Okay, so then you're always wondering, can we do different things? And that's really good because now you're adapting to things that are needed in the community. And when you look for funds, then you can say, well, look, we did X, Y, and Z, and we now realize we do A, B, and C. So we're now going expanding the project, developing the project. That's really, really important because once you're constantly doing stuff and being innovative, the funding really follows that. But as a community, people are really bought into it. So I'll give an example. We did back in 2006 in Killeedy in Cantor in West Limerick. Kerry Group closed Cantor Foods, and it was about 300 jobs gone, lost. And it was about 2 months after Castleman closed their plant as well in Castleman, which is only about 5 kilometres away from it. So in the community, roughly, there was about 500 jobs gone overnight. That would be the equivalent of Dell closing Limerick City or Facebook leaving Dublin. That's the impact. And we were brought in to do kind of a community plan or a rescue plan, really, with the community a committee that was formed up there, the Cantor Development Group. And that was back in 2006. And I was up there a couple of months ago. We were doing a showcase because they were nominated for the Pride of Place Awards, I think it was. And anyway, they outlined what they've done since 2006. Since 2006, when there was loads of jobs lost, and there was huge problems, obviously, because of that. And people were very, very worried about the future of their families and the future of the community as a whole. Now in 2023, in case it took a long time, they've got probably 300 people working in the community again, like 10 companies working there. They have a 5,000 square foot enterprise centre, 5,000 square foot industrial unit, a 20,000 or 30,000 square foot frozen food distribution outlet. They've got expanded their GA facility. They've got a pub converted into a community centre, Chotas Hall for Chotas Culture and a youth room. They've got a recreation park, and they're now developing. They've got a reed bed sewer system developed, and now they're developing a social housing plan. That's what can be achieved in the community. if the community innovates and adapts and develops over time. It's amazing what people can do. And that's a small community with a small number of people, not a big town. They managed to leverage funding from different agencies, but it wasn't the funding, it was the blood, sweat, tears, and the support from the community all going together to get stuff done. But they did that based on one plan back in 2006, and another plan we did for them back in 2015. And it wasn't me, because all mine was just words on paper. We actually took the plan, took the actions, and actually implemented the actions and got stuff done. Okay? So when people say to me, you can't do X, Y, and Z, that's rubbish. You can do whatever you want to do if you got the backing of the community behind it, and you got a plan to work from. Okay? Without a plan, you're going nowhere. You try to build a house without a plan, the best look here. You need a blueprint, you need a design, you need to do something with it. If you're trying to build a community project without a plan, it won't happen. You might get lucky, it will happen, but it will fall down eventually, guaranteed. Okay? And the key thing is there's no point on the community plan, community project or project plan unless you've got the people and resources locally, not the government agencies, not the county council, not the funders, the people on the ground locally to back it. Because they're the key. Okay? It will not be sustainable, you will not survive. If you talk to any sports club anywhere in Kerry or anywhere across the country, if you don't have people lying in the pitch, the volunteers coaching the kids, the volunteers collecting the money, the volunteers making the teas and coffees for the visiting team going afterwards, the people raising money to redrain or resurface the pitch, you don't have those people that are none of them being paid, the club doesn't exist. It's the exact same in the community. All things happen in the community done by volunteers. Those volunteers' life is made easier if there's a plan in place, so they're working against the plan. That's the most important thing. So what do you do with that information? You analyze it, right? So you have to get the information first of all, and then you say, okay, let's analyze this. Let's look at what all the issues are. Let's look at what all the problems are, and let's see what we can do as a group to do something about it. So what we do is simply 2 or 3 analysis. SWOT analysis, which you all probably are seen or you're familiar with. SWOT are the strengths, what's good about our community, what's weak about our community, what's bad about our community, what are the issues, where are the opportunities for us as a community going forward. It might be funding, it might be a site, it might be a building, a vacant property, it might be a sponsor who wants to get involved, it might be new people coming to the community so the population increased, it might be new teachers joining the school because their enrollments have increased. What are the threats to the community? So depopulation, the biggest threat to all communities, increasing costs, lack of funding, cuts in government funding, difficulty getting finance, lack of housing, no planning permission because it's in an area where planning permission is difficult to get, so that means no families move into the area. All these things might be threats. So you identify what the strengths are, from your analysis, what the weaknesses are, what the opportunities are, and what the threats are. Gap analysis. So you base that on, again, depending on the type of project that you're looking at. So what are the gaps in services? There might be public transport, it could be facilities, it could be broadband, it could be a whole range of things. Then you're looking at enterprise facilities. So what sort of, is there shops, is there offices, is there industrial space, is there a workshop space? Is there maybe food producers locally, but they've no place to work from one of their homes? We put a food hub in there. Might have a lot of craft workers in the area, but we've no craft space. We might have no community shop. We might be, we might have no cafe, all that kind of stuff. Community facilities, childcare, older persons services facilities, daycare, schools, creches, all that kind of stuff. Recreation facilities, parks, walkways, trails, sports facilities, playgrounds, and then skills. Skills is a big thing. People don't look at skills at all. Skills what skills do we have that we don't have in the area? What skills we need to bring in into our, not to our area, but into our organization. So you might do a review of your organization and say, look, we've loads of community people here who are brilliant, but we've known with business skills, we've known with finance skills, we've known with legal skills, we've known with fundraising skills. Can we identify someone in the local community that can jump on the committee and get involved, help us out? And then we look at the issues and challenges. Okay, so we look at what the issues are in terms of infrastructure. Typically, that would be things like, say, wastewater treatment, water quality, broadband, parking, footpaths, speeding through a village, all those stuff. The issue might be funding. We've no track record of raising money. Community are bad at fundraising. There's no grants available, or there's no funding available for our type of project. There might be volunteer burnout, which is, one of the biggest issues facing communities monthly. Volunteers are running away, not just running away, they're sprinting away from targets, all because it's just too time consuming, it's too much bureaucracy involved, too much regulation involved, too much paperwork involved, too much BS involved in a lot of it, so they don't get involved anymore. Challenge might be recreation facilities, or the structures might be challenged. You might have a community group that's there in name, but they're not working or operating properly. They don't have enough numbers. There's not enough people involved. They're not really doing what they're supposed to do. They've got no governance. They've got no kind of strategy. They're poor in finance. So all these might be challenges. Now, every community has to be realistic about and be honest about what the challenges are, because if everything's rosy, everything's fantastic, which is never the case in any community, you're kind of lying to yourself. And you're normally going to be looking for funding to solve the problem. Okay, so you have to identify what those problems are. Very rarely you're looking for funding because everything's fantastic. You're looking for funding because there's a problem, or you need extra space or more facilities or whatever it might be. So you have to start identifying what the challenges are and issues are. And you also have to start identifying as well who's responsible for that. Okay, so if the challenge is that there's no planning in an area because you can't get planning permission, because you can't get percolation or whatever, or just because it's not zoned or whatever it might be, you can't solve that yourselves. All you can do is lobby for it. Okay, if the problem is wastewater treatment, you can't solve that yourself. You've got to lobby for it. Okay, so the issue is that you raise the issue, but you can't solve the problem. You can only raise that and lobby and fight for it. If it's an issue, let's say that there's no one helping outside towns and the place is a mess, that's no one else's problem on years. You have to go and find people to help out and do that. Okay, so some issues you can resolve yourselves locally, other issues aren't your responsibility. You have to get help from other people to do it. Your job is kind of keep it on the agenda, make sure it's done, and keep after it. Okay, so we'll check those questions from there. So the next thing then, so your analysis is this, so you analyze, and then you put a plan together. And the plan basically is, right, now we know we have the information, we have the analysis, we've analyzed the information, we know what the problems are. Now what do we do? Now how do we actually resolve this? What's the plan? So when I sit down with a group, the first thing I say to them is, right, have you got the analysis done? Have you got the needs? Yes, we have. So what's your plan? And they look at me and say, that's your job, just what the plan. It's not. The plan is really based in terms of what the group can do, what communities can do, what communities are capable of doing. Okay, so a lot of plans are way over ambitious. They're not achievable. They're not costed properly. There's no actions assigned to the plan. There's no one assigned to do anything, and there's no time frame, right? So that would be the equivalent of me, who was supposed to fix the roof of my shed 12 months ago, and it's not done, right? There was no one designated to do it. There was no time frame put on it. It never happened. Most plans never leave the paper that they're written on, because no one sat down and said, okay, who's doing what, who's responsible, when it's going to be done, how much it's going to cost. Okay, every plan we do, I've done over the years, whether for communities or for groups or for projects, whatever, it is actually soul destroying when you drive past or through a village and they've done nothing. Absolutely soul destroying, because you're thinking, I spend time and effort, and the community spend time and effort, and nothing was done with it. And it's an absolute dream to drive through a village or a town or wherever, and you see a community centre or an enterprise centre or signage or walkway or floodlights or a playground. You thought, I was part of that in some shape or form, and I'm delighted the community is thinking about it. Okay, it makes my job worthwhile. It makes me feel good about myself. It makes me feel good about the community. But it is soul destroying when an action plan is an action. And that's the key. There's no point talking about project planning in a training workshop like this tonight, and everyone sitting down and thinking, great, we got a project together for a community or a club or organization, and you have an action plan and a project plan, but no one actually takes that and actually does anything with it. Okay, that's like buying a car and realizing you don't have a driver for the car, or actually we realize we don't know how to drive, so now the car sits in the driveway and nothing's happening. You have to have people who are committed to action in the plan. And that's really important. Now, I'll be talking about that in the following workshops, but think about that on the workshop tonight. Okay, so I always start with why. If I'm dealing with a business person who's starting their own business and they're coming to me saying, Tom, can you help me start my business? I say, of course I can. And I'll ask them, why are you starting the business? What's your product or service? Why do people want it? If I'm dealing with a community, I say, Tom, we need to have a community centre in our village. Why? And very often they can't answer that question. Well, because we need one. So why do you need one? Because we got people living there and they need a space. And I said, okay, but why do they want it? I start asking all these questions. And sometimes I annoy people because I ask the question way too many times. Because if you can't tell me why you want something, then you can't convince someone to fund it. Okay? So the why is, what's the purpose? Just what's the purpose? What's the purpose of doing this? What's the purpose of building a playground? What's the purpose of building a community centre? What's the purpose of adding another pitch? What's the purpose of you know, getting public transport? What's the purpose of doing whatever it is you're trying to do? Okay? And the purpose is based on, well, we've identified needs, and we know why we need this, because people want it, people told us they want it, and we said it's a gap and it's an issue, and it's a problem, and we need to solve it. And that's why we're doing it. That's fine, now I know what you're doing it. Then it's how are you going to do it? And that's where they stop, because they haven't thought about how they're going to do it. Right? So we asked them, okay, well, how are you going to do this? Well, what's the process? When are we going to put a plan together? Great. Who's going to put a plan together? A committee. Who's in the committee? And once it's done and it's in place and the plan's in place, we're going to get funding. And once you get funding, okay, that's great. When you get funding, who's going to manage the funding? Committee. Right? And once it's up and running and you open the doors, who's going to manage the building? Right? How is it going to work? All the way from now on to you open the doors and after you open the doors. Right? If you can answer all those questions, brilliant. And then we say, why are you doing it? What's the result? Okay? What's the impact here? How is it going to improve your community? How is it going to improve the lives of people locally? Okay? So the reason why you build a community centre is you provide a multi-purpose facility for everyone in the community. So all the people who are living alone in a house, who are maybe families left, their partner has died, they're on their own, they're in the middle of nowhere, they're waiting at the door to see the postman for a chat. They can't get up because they can't drive anymore. They have no access to community, they have no access to any social outlet, and they're going to have a miserable existence. By providing the community facility, you can provide a facility where you can provide daycare, you can bring people in, you can give them a lunch, you can give them entertainment, you can provide them with healthcare. They meet people, it keeps them alive longer, it keeps them happy in the community. That's the impact. The reason why you provide childcare is because people can work, because there's someone to look after their children. That's the impact for the person themselves. The impact on the kid is that they get preschool education, they get to socialize with other kids, they get to learn things. And the impact on the national school is because it provides a feeder for the national school, which increases enrollments, which increases the teacher numbers and keeps the school open. It also brings families to the area because now there's childcare as well as jobs in the area. That impacts on the local community, jobs, retail, shops, pubs, restaurants, the local school, the local GA club. So you have to look at what the impact is, what we're going to do. If there's no impact, why are you doing it? That's the question I always ask people. So why are you doing it? How are you going to do it? And what difference will it make to people's lives? Okay. So if you're involved in a sports organization, people are getting involved in sport for a couple of reasons. One, to socialize, to get fit, because they want to learn a new skill. Parents will send their kids to sports organizations for different reasons. One, because they want them to socialize, they want them to get fit, they want them away from the screens, they want them to learn skills, either they're good or bad at the sport. Parents will send their kids to a sports camp, like a football camp or soccer camp or whatever camp during the midterm break, because they childminding. So that's the impact of it. Okay. So what's the reason? Why are you doing it? How are you doing it? And what's the impact of it? If you can answer those three things in your project plan, you will get funding, guaranteed. Because you're given the case, you presented the case, and you've proven the case and need for the project to be funded. So when we do project plans for multi-million euro building projects that are funded under, say, RDF or one of those larger capital projects, we have to do what's called a business case. The business case is where you're proving there's demand, you've done the market research, the market analysis, you've proven that there's a structure there in place to manage and govern the project and the building or the service, whatever it might be, and you're given an economic impact analysis, how it's going to impact on the local economy. You're providing a social impact analysis, how it's going to impact on people living locally within the community. You're providing an environmental impact, how it's going to impact on the environment. And you're showing how it's going to be sustained over a 10-year period in terms of the financial impact and how it's going to basically, make enough money to be sustainable. That's on a very large scale, but we bring that down to a very small scale for a small local project. Why are you doing it? What's the purpose? What's the impact of it? Okay. Put in like a garden seat on a walkway, on a trail. So let's say you develop a walkway in your community, and you put a number of garden seats or public seating in different places. Why are you doing it? Because people need time to sit down. But also encourage you to sit down and chat as well. But also use, let's say, if you put it on that seat. I've seen some places do it where they put actually information on the seat about the local area, or they have an interactive speaker. But some people actually built in speakers into the actual seat where people actually can play, or they use their phone to on a QR code to find out information about the environment or biodiversity in the area, things like that. So the reason you're doing is to provide a seat to some sit down. How you're going to do it is you'll get funding to do whatever it might be, and the results and the impact might be a number of different things. So you're always looking at how you can actually show an impact in multiple ways for what you're trying to do, and that's part of the planning process, right? So we would always tease that out with a group in terms of, if you do this, what will the impact be? And there's always going to be multiple impacts to it, right? So if it's public transport, the reason you provide public transport to get people from A to B, that's the reason you're doing it, right? The impact as that person now can get to the local village for their shopping or their pension or whatever it might be. The real impact of that, we've done studies in rural transport, isn't the transport, it's the social interaction on the bus with your neighbours while you're going from A to B. Because I know one guy who we actually interviewed, who was on the bus, it was above in Duhallow, and he said, I couldn't care less about going to the local village. I'm not until I get there, but I'm great crack on the bus getting there. that was the impact. No, that's what you document. That's what you say. It's a social outlet. Wherever the government departments and the civil service think it's a public transport service getting people from A to B. It is, absolutely, but the indirect impact of that is that people get to meet each other, which you didn't do before. Okay, so all those things you try and tease out what's involved, what is the impact to that person. Okay, what does every organisation need? What does every community need? An identified need, which we talked about all along. Customers, or people that are going to use the service, or clients, whatever, or service users, so members, people are going to, if I say again, or if I see some people saying, we're going to build an enterprise centre or a community centre or childcare, great, fantastic. How many clients will use it every day? How many people will use it every day? Have you judged how many use it? Will you use 2, 9, and 5? All these things. So you're always looking at, what people will use it and how many will use it. Then you look at the resources. So is there proper structures in place in terms of a committee or an organisation or community or a club or whatever that will actually deliver on this, or that can actually take this project and run with it? Okay. What are the human resources? What are the volunteers? How many people are getting involved? And what skills do they have? And then the last thing is the finance. So every organisation, every community needs money to start up the project and keep the project going. That could be through grants, it could be through fundraising, it could be through kind of social loans, it could be through sponsors, donations, it could be through beg, stealing and borrowing, it could be benefits in kind in terms of support or products or services that you're getting for free, anything of those things. Okay, but that's what communities need. Start off with the need, the people that are going to use it, the people that are going to manage it, and the way you're going to fund it and sustain it. Okay, so that's what every group or organisation will require. And then finally, this is what you end up with. You end up with an action plan. Okay, and this action plan is very simply, what's our objective? What is the action we're going to do? So what are we actually going to do? What do we need to do as part of that action? So what are the actual individual steps we need to take? Who's going to do it? And I put in, like example development committee, I'd actually name people and shame them then if they don't do it. Right? Tom O'Leary is responsible for that. At the next meeting, Tom, did you get that done? No, I didn't. Why not? Okay, make people responsible. If people aren't responsible, nothing will get done. When will it be done? So put a date on it. So get invest in a wall chart and mark down on the date. This will be done by this date. If you don't put a date on it, it'll never be done. Okay, and if you don't put dates on things, things and deadlines and stuff. We miss deadlines for grants. We're involved in a project in Limerick at the moment with the Limerick City Council, and there is going to be funding, large-scale funding available, probably been announced in this month, and it's going to be probably up to February, the deadline. And there's opportunity to get probably close on 1.something million from that fund with the new planning commission. And we were hoping that they would have everything in place so that we could put in for planning application. Not that we would, they would be able to put in for planning application by early January, so that by early December or mid-December, so we would have planning in place by the deadline. Because there was no deadline set on by then to get certain things done. It hasn't been done yet, and the planning commission won't be done until probably February, which means they need to miss the deadline for that large capital funding next year, which means that the project will probably now be pushed out 3-4 years when it's needed next year or needed the year after. The problem with saying I'll do that next week, or I'll do that next month, or we get to the next meeting time we meet now, we'll talk about that, is you'll miss opportunities and grants. That's the key. That's why you need to put hard deadlines and stuff. Otherwise, this won't happen. You miss opportunities. How much it's going to cost? I will put down what the actual item is going to cost, and you go off and try to get a price on it, and then how we're going to finance that. So I just put an example here. It's a generic example. The objective might be to improve recreation facilities for everyone in the community. So that might be walkway, maybe a sensory garden, biodiversity area, just a park, basically, right? Maybe the playground or whatever it might be. So the action would be, well, we secure the lease on the site, and that site might be owned by the local authority. So what we need to do, we need to negotiate with the local authority, who's going to do it, the development committee, and I get a name person on that development committee. When will it be done? By March. How much will it cost? It'll cost in legal fees. So someone's going to go off and get a price from a solicitor to do that. How are we going to fund this? We fund it through our own funds that we have in the account. The next action is carry out a design and site plan. Okay, that means what we need to do is engage a design team, an architect. Who's going to do that? The development committee will engage the design team. When will it be done? It'll be done by the end of March. Design team will be engaged by then, and then it'll take 2 months to design the actual site. How much will it cost? The design team will be required to be paid. They'll have fees. We'll apply for leader funding to get a feasibility study grant to pay for the design team. Then planning permission will be sought. That means planning application will be submitted. Who do that? The design team will do that. It'll be submitted submitted in June, and the decision will take at least 3 months. So probably October. How much will it cost? Design team fees and planning fees. Legal won't fund a planning application, so that might be done through fundraising. And then we do a feasibility study analysis, carry out analysis, business case, the consultants needed, quantity surveyors needed. That will happen parallel to the planning process, the fees involved, and then that can be funded by legal. Okay, so this is your your project plan, action plan, where it very clearly states what we need to do, how we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, who's going to do it, what's going to cost, where that money's going to come from. Okay. When you've got something like that in front of you, and you've got a team of people meeting regularly to make sure these things are done, things happen, and things get done, and things get done on time, and opportunities are taken advantage of rather than missed, and that's really key. I can't emphasize enough to you the importance of having a plan and being shovel ready. And shovel ready is the term they use by the grant deadline date, especially next year, because as I said, there's going to be lots of money out there next year, without a doubt, because it is election year. The checker is lots of cash. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years' time because I don't have a crystal ball, but I can nearly guarantee that things are going to be a lot worse than they are now financially. We're going to have new government in place with new policies. We don't know what's going to happen. Internationally, things are a mess, as we all know. How that's going to filter down in terms of the economy and local level, I don't know. How that's going to impact in terms of government funding. If the economy is going bad, government funding is going to be bad. Government funding is what funds you, what funds your projects, what funds communities. So strike now while iron's hot and get out there with your plans. Okay. So the next part 2 of this workshop is on next week. So as I said, I will be emailing the slides to Breda. I'll email the recording of the workshop tonight. I'm hoping that it's still recording. Of recording to read as well. And we don't know if you want to put it up on the PPN site or just email out to people that are here tonight. Whatever you want, whichever way you want to do, it's fine.
Yeah, we'll email them out, Tom. Yeah, thanks.
And my email is there on that's kind of scribbled over on the slide as well. If you want to email me any questions you have on that, that's perfect as well. I can come back with any answers. But I'll be delivering this workshop or the next couple of workshops as well anyway. So if you have any questions from me in between now and then, feel free to ask me or come back to me. Have you any questions? I know we kind of covered a lot in the last 2 hours, so we kind of flew through it, but there's lots to take in. Any questions from what we discussed there this evening? No?
I know, Tom.
Yeah?
Yeah, Mike Moriarty from Finn here, Tom.
Hi, Mike, what things?
The biggest issue we have in Finn, I think you said we should get political about, is the water treatment plant.
Yeah.
We can't develop Finn it until, and they're talking about this might happen in 2026 or 2028. Like, we can't build houses, we can't do nothing in Finn it without the water treatment plant being finished.
Yeah. Okay. What I do then, Mike, is in the same situation for a lot of communities I'm working in as well, not just in Kerry, but in other areas where wastewater treatment is a problem, and that didn't cause a problem for planning for houses and stuff. It's not your responsibility to solve it, but it's responsibility of our water, obviously, to solve it. But what we tend to do, or what we recommend groups to do, is that if they can document the impact of not having a wastewater treatment plant in their area, so they can say, look, if we had this, we'd have jobs, we'd have houses, we'd have families, we'd have, the economy would be booming, the economy would be a lot better. And that's got a whole range of spin-offs in terms of the local impact. Obviously, the environmental impact is the biggest one as well. So basically, it's up to you and groups to lobby as much as you possibly can, but you have to lobby with data to show the impact of it not happening and the impact of it if it did happen. And you could even talk to other communities where they managed to get in wastewater treatment upgrades, how it's impacting the community for positively, both as from an environmental point of view and also from the economic point of view. But it's a huge issue across the county in terms of people want, like, I know a lot of people want to relocate to Kerry, but can't because can't get houses, can't buy a house, or they can't build a house. I know a lot of people that have family farms who just want to build in their family farm and can't because of planning purposes or planning restrictions. And if they were, they'd be working, bringing in 70, 80, 90, 100,000 euro plus salaries into the community, which would be huge. Kids come with them, going to the local school, going to the local pubs. So you have to show the impact of these things not happening and how they really impact negatively on the community. And if it's not done, sooner rather than later, how the community will miss out on opportunities too. But it's a lobbying thing, Mike. Really, all you can do is lobby, because you can't go out and do it yourselves. And you have to lobby for it and show them the impact of it not being happening.
Yeah, but the problem is that Irish Water and Kerry County Council don't communicate.
Yeah, but you have to try to talk. I know it's hard, but you'd have to try and figure out a way of getting into them and try to make them communicate, because
Okay, thanks for that.
It's lobbying, really, it's as all I'm fighting for it.
Thanks for that.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thanks.
Okay. Any other question? Are you all okay? No? Okay, so are you okay, Brita, or anything there? Everything okay?
No, I just want to say thanks a million, Tom. That was very informative, and there's a lot, as I say, a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But if there's any questions, you can email me, ppn@kerrycoco.ie, and we can send it on to Tom. And we'll also be sending on the slides and the recording of this information session. Some Tom's and some
I'll send on as well, Brita, the links there. I mentioned like the sensors, and I mentioned like the various strategies and stuff like that. So I'll send on those links to people as well, so they have them on file if they're using that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah.
Get into them,
And if anyone hasn't emailed us, or if they want to just send us your email again, just so that we can send out the links and the recording and slides, Tom's slides to you.
Right. Okay, great. So hopefully see you all next week, next Thursday, same time, same place. And And again, we record next week's session as well, so if you can attend, it'd be great.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks everyone for attending this evening.
Very much, Tom.
Thanks, Brita.
That's great. Thanks. Thank you,
Brita.
Tom. Thanks.
Thanks
Bye.
very much.
We'll see you. Carol. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for that.